right, let's go.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, the books is in. The books are in. Yep. They in. They're here.
All right, peace to the family out there. Tonight, y'all know what it is: the destruction of Black civilization. We are going to be doing Chapter 7, the scattering of the people, routes to death and resurrection. I got my brothers on the panel. I got my brother Sute, got my brother Kofi, got T'Challa, and we got Annie Hared. So, Sute, you want to go ahead and go first?
Yeah, man. Share Lafayette. Peace to the family. Peace to the chat. Peace to all those that will view in the archives and those that will come late. We black at you again. Chancellor Williams' Destruction of Black Civilization. Hope all y'all been following along. Get your pads and your pen out. We about to break through and break down chapter 7. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, please.
Alright, I guess I'll go next. Peace to everybody. Yeah, we're back at it again. Getting through this Chancellor Williams work so that we can properly stand on the shoulders of what we need to, update what we need to, and always look to go forward. We really appreciate y'all rocking with us. Let's get into it.
ETM Hotel. Dua Ku. Dua Necha, Fatma Lafayette, Fatma Riri, Fatmu Iwa Pele, Majuba Iba Ie Gungun, Majuba Iba Ie Gungun, Majuba Iba Ie Lakba, Gungun Kiki, Igugun. I always had to give honor and praises to the ancestors, because without the ancestors, they ain't got a lot of trade of thought, but we are our ancestors. I also want to stand honor and praises to the true and living elders according to African traditions and from an African worldview. Welcome back to the channel. Like they said, this is another installment of our ancestors' publication, Destruction of Black Civilization, The Great Issues of Race from 45 BCE to 2000 BCE, where we'll be discussing chapter 7. So peace, Black African power. And go back on me.
ETM Hotel, Rennie Sean, welcome in peace. My name is Sean. I'd like to thank everybody tuning into the show. Like the show, share a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. We back at it again with this real information. So we're going to get it cranking, man. I just want to, make sure that everybody share the show. Support Kofi Pies, our research team. Pick up your merch. Get your merch, get your books, get ready. We're going into 2021 with our guns loaded, and it's all kind of warfare going on, man. It is intellectual warfare, and we all over the place with these guns.
All right, that's peace. That's peace. And like the brother said, yeah, y'all support. Y'all see, we go live, we do all this stuff. The more support y'all give us, the more research and stuff we're able to do, frees up our time and all that good stuff. And we got like I said, we got the scholarship and stuff. A lot of the revenue that we get, we giving back. So cooperative economics. But yeah, so let's deal with chapter 7. What you think, Kofi? I know your book marked up, man. I ain't got nothing probably to about page 190 or 179. What you got though? The mic muted.
Yeah, I don't, let me see. I ain't got nothing, man. I ain't got nothing starting out.
This me and Sue take chapter, ain't it?
Yeah, because I got some stuff in here, but most of it is pertaining to you and Sutek lane. But I got some stuff too, but I don't start until later on in the chapter 2 with the.
Can you do me a favor, Kofi?
What's that?
Can you read the opening paragraph in the book, like the opening paragraph for me?
The African migration.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. We on page 176 for people that got their books. We on page 176, chapter 7. Title of the chapter is the scattering of people, routes, and death and resurrection. The African migration has been stressed at various points as one of the major developments from which much can be learned about the history of the blacks. The migration explained things. They were people and perpetual movements. The movements were human tragedies spanning to many millenniums. It was noted that the great pressures of Africans usually began in a prehistoric time, and in that pressure of uprooting so many settlement communities came from two principal agencies of destructions: the slow and relentless incursions of oceans, of the sands, and the so relentless incursions of Asians, hoarders, the Europeans coming later, accelerating the movement. So that's where you want me to stop it?
Yeah, so this sets the stage for what many people seem to see as a pattern of people going into other places and begin to settle and develop, other cultural techniques. This is why some people say that's why we see so many similarities among African tribes and in the culture and the traditions of a people. Is because it's like they get to going places, they get to seeing similar things that they've seen before, and then they start amalgamating themselves in these areas and then restoring certain type of beliefs and ideals among themselves. This is why Kofi writing that old controversial chapter about Kimoyo, creating your own African system and all of that. Because this is when it kind of define that based on this migration and how things transpire. Now, Kofi might want to add, he might want to say something about that, but that was an interlude to actually get you to speak on that.
Oh, okay. Well, he's talking about one of the chapters in volume 3 that's available now on Kofi Paisai TV, that's Spiritual Comeback. I talk about starting your own Kimoyo. Kimoyo is a term that Brother Asar introduced to us. And, a lot of people know I don't like to use the word African spirituality as much, or African traditional religion, or African religion in general, because there are tons and tons of traditions that has their own names, and we just need to get to know what those names are. But I talk about the different migration patterns. We're talking about the Kimoyo system, where these different ethnic groups began to develop different Kimoyos, or different African traditions, or a different spirituality based on the geographical location that they reside in at these different times, and each geographical location that they inhabited. Different perspective, different ideologies began to take place, which forms their tradition and their customs. So this is a reason why I say that some people have contention with starting your own Kimoyo, and I think Asar is kind of on like the same page me when it comes to dealing with this subject, because we're talking about different migrations, and we're talking about, and this chapter is dealing with migration. This chapter actually talks about what causes certain people to migrate in certain areas, you know. And so he's talking about 3 different specific reasons why they migrated. There was other reasons why they migrated too, but the Pacific was these 3 that he's going to be talking about. But again, as we get in the chapter and you look, these people began to develop their own way of life, or a new way of life again, because of the geographical location. And so that's why I say that in the United States, it's nothing wrong with starting your own Kimoyo, because we in a different, and our ancestors migrated here by force. So our ancestors did migrate here, but it was by force. And if you look in South Africa, not South Africa, but South America, you look in the Caribbean, and you look at even North America, different African spiritualities, or different systems, or different customs and traditions, or different ways of life was developed because of the geographical location, meaning that the air might be different. The sun may not be as closer to the equator as other. Certain animals may not exist in this geographical location. This type of bean or plant may not grow in this different geographical location. This place may have not hurricanes. Well, we can say, because we have hurricanes, but this geographical location has hurricanes. It has tornadoes. Another geographical location may have forest fires. It may have earthquakes. Another place may have volcanic eruptions. Another place may have floods. So all these things is based off the geographical location, where the ideology of the customs is developed around the geographical locations and the things that's going on around in those geographical location. And that is due to being in a different geographical location via any type of migration.
All right, Kofi, can you go to the can you continue on the second paragraph into the third for me?
Right here at the bottom of migration and culture declines.
Yes.
Okay. All right, still on page 176 for those that may be following in their books. But the migrations as cultural declines. The migrations were many different kinds, and so much so that the overall description of them is often misleading. There was no general continuous flights of people here and there all over the continent. Some of the movements were so slow and limited in space that they might hesitate to call them migrations. These were a group that moved only in relative short distance each time. As a whole, never left their general area. After hundreds of years, such groups might not be more than 100 miles from their traditional homes after several generations. Even in the case of those who migrated fathers, the movement had been slow because the whole movement was forced. Every breakup and painful uprooting in community that had been built on hopes of dreams and permanent abode. Every move was such for still another abodes where lands and water could support life, and security could assure another chance of survival. These slowly moving migrations was mentioned in the discussion of geographical influence. You want me to start right there?
Yeah, that just kind of back up what we started with at the beginning of the chapter, when he begins to talk more about how these people are moving and shaking. And then that also backs up your point of how these people were sitting here and creating and settling. And notice the key word that he used in there toward that end was security. Security was a big thing. What do they need to be secure from? Think about nature.
Yep.
Right? The good in nature and the bad in nature.
Right.
So the negatives and the positives had to be weighed out in order for them to find somewhere that was sacred for them to be able to develop and be consistent in their way of, help create and develop some consistency in their way of life. So that's the reason why I wanted you to read that, because that speaks back to the greater part of the argument when you're looking at migration. But also, if intruders or foreigners were to come in the land, they could either defend the land or they knew a way of moving out of that land into another designated area where they can seek shelter and safety. So this thing wasn't just they were just moving just to be moving. They were moving because of necessity.
Right.
And a lot of time it was required movement because of it was things that was taking place that was beyond certain people control. You just couldn't move them off the land though. You know what I'm saying? So what really would control a bigger movement that we'll see is an act of nature, you know, like to the Africans. And you might want to speak on this a little bit too, but to the Africans, if like a bad karma or not karma, but if they in a particular area and people dying at a rapid number, right? They would see that as a sign. That sign would force them to be like, hey, we need to get from over there. Something ain't right about that. You know what I'm saying? So that might be something that they'll give a bad name to or something in reference to that, and then they'll get the heck away from over there, or they'll keep people away from over there. That'd be you know, that's where the evilness take place, because you know they don't believe in hell and they don't believe in the devil. So if you want to take to that, you can. If not, you can go forward. Sutek might want to build on the next page, but I know definitely when I get back home, I'm gonna come back because of most stuff I want to elaborate on.
Well, I'll read a little bit further on down on page 178, and then somebody can take over, and then I got a few pages in between where people was talking about. But like he was saying, though, you know, those people move before I go down. You know, it was different particular reasons, you know, different reasons for these different migration patterns. Like he said, those that, you know, because when you get in further in the chapter, you're going to start to see, which we already been talking about in these chapters. We've been talking about invasions. He's been talking about invasions the whole time. He's been talking about the Asians, Asian invasion. He's been talking about the European invasions. He's been talking about the Roman invasions later on, the Syrians invasions, the Greeks invasions, and etc. So due to these different invasions, you know what I'm saying, some people migrated out of these different areas. Some people migrated out of these different areas due to a specific reason, you know, a specific reason in nature, which we're going to talk about. Nature took place, you know what I'm saying, and it did something in the Pacific area where it was forced these people to move, because if they didn't move, and a lot of people died, but if they didn't move, you know what I'm saying, they definitely wouldn't be able to survive in this area because of the things that Mother Nature was doing in this certain region that we'll talk about, which forced these people to migrate south, east, and even west. But we'll talk about that when we get to that specific reason on why they migrated. But I'll read right here. It says there was a better known migration that erupted, moved south, east, and west like tidal waves. These occurred as the results of many Asians and Europeans invasions and conquests. They were further accelerated by the new turns of institutions and slavery from the 17th century AD. Onward, as much later periods, the 16th century Black mulatto groups such as the Jagas and the Igoni added to the turmoil of this organization. It is quite clear that the wave of Blacks that spread over Africa in these migrations came mainly from areas which Black consecrations, which great as an attack on the consecrations, preserved relentless. These areas of Black consecrations and populations was an ancient Ethiopian empire, which I have described as the heartland of the race, the motherland of the civilization that despised the Asian invasions. And we talk about that in chapters below, which he's referring to it as Ethiopia. We know we refer to it in the other chapters. We refer to it as Tai-Seti or Tai-Nahesi. And this particular reason, they despise those people in the area, the brothers in the South. They despised those Asians, and they knew how detrimental it was for those Asians to come into that area, which resulted in the brothers in the South fighting against their kinsmen in the North. You know what I'm saying? The Remich, the Remich and the Tai-Nahesi. How did they pronounce that cell? We know that's Tai-Nahesi, But what is it? You know, we got the people in Kemet is called the Kemetu or the Remich. The Ta-Nehesi was called the Nehesians.
The HCU.
Yeah,
The
the
HCU.
Nehesiu. Yeah, the Nehesiu. You know, which calls
Why
a
you making them two different people though?
Call it the Nehesiu. But anyway, you know, it just it just further elaborating on what we saying, that these people migrated. A lot of these people migrated through to these different invasions in Africa. Even when you go to West Africa, we're gonna talk about that. But if you study West Africa, we're gonna talk about why these specific people migrated to the south, the east, and the west, and this was the cause of Mother Nature. But also in the west, they migrated too. Was another migration. This other migration, it has to do with Asian hordes, and that's these Asian invading and coming off the sea into these particular areas. So these people began to migrate to different places for safe haven, or for safe haven because of the hoarding of these different foreigners coming into their land. But I'll stop right there, man. If anybody got something else, man, and I'll come back a little bit later on, or on a page or two after.
Where you stop at, Kofi? At 178?
Yep, I stopped at the bottom of 178.
All right, well, I'm gonna pick it up because that's right where I start off at. So I'm gonna start at 179, but I'm gonna start at the very top. Human beings simply refuse to be generalized into neat categories. In ancient times, and even later, there were Caucasians who regarded the blacks as superior people. The question about inherent inequality they would have thought absurd to entertain. The Greeks, who seem to have studied the advanced civilizations of the blacks more than any other white people, were first among this group. There were therefore always Caucasians who were affectionately drawn to blacks as by some magic. When recognized as genuine by the blacks, the esteem became mutual, and such Caucasians became an integral part of some black groups. Excuse me. These were not the Caucasian Asians of Western who infiltrated black societies in domination of the future conquest. These were Caucasians, albeit a small minority, who stayed with blacks and fought shoulder to shoulder with them against their own kind, retreated with them in defeat, and were therefore a part of the migration. I have also emphasized that not all the mixed breeds, whether Afro-Arab or Afro-Europe, deserted the blacks for the whites. For a while, the majority did cleave to the race of their fathers, and denotation of the minority to the race of their mothers seemed to be spiritual in nature, and it more than overshadowed the white worship half whites. I feel like this little paragraph is, got some good information on it, because it just struck me because it's always like whenever us as black people, we have an organization or something, we always got Europeans that want to infiltrate it, and they'll fight for us. They'll even fight their own people for us, but like they always got to be in the mix of what we got going on. Now, when they do their little stuff, they do their little KKK rallies, and they do their little fraternal order of police and all this and that. They don't want no black people involved in it, and they don't want us a part of none of that stuff. So I just feel like, we always letting them into our circle, and that is damaging, to what we trying to do and what we got going on, whether they for us or not. You know what I'm saying? What y'all think?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying on that too, but also from looking at that and reading that, because I did have that highlighted in my book as well. Like you said, I try to highlight my stuff up, but and it's just saying too, it just further proving to me, just going back and rereading this, for validation for people people think that we got in contact mixed with these, got in contact with these people via the Atlantic slave trade, which wasn't true. Just, you know, if you go back to the prehistoric days, you go back 6,000 years ago. When we talking 6,000 years ago, we was encountered by these people, you know what I'm saying, 6,000 years ago. And we keep making the same mistakes. We got people that these foreigners that are staying with us, but we know at a drop of a dime, they will you know, they will go back to their fathers, as Chancellor William was saying. For a while, majority did cleave to the race of their fathers, and you see that when we was talking about in some of those chapters where the first Nasut Biti began to Nama begins to set these policies into place because we're so kind, and we integrated these foreigners, even though these foreigners was migrating, they was coming into these areas, or even pushing their way into these areas and trying to take over these certain areas, and then we would seize our lands back, and then you had some people, that we continue to allow with these policies to follow, to follow in behind us, to live amongst us, and even fight. These foreigners would even fight their own people. But so it's just, for me, it's just showing that, people need to get off the talk of, racism, just started, or even we encountering these foreigners in the Atlantic slave trade, because a lot of people always base, we didn't get in contact, we never got in contact with these people until we got to the Atlantic slave trade in the 1400s, or we was in contact with these Arabs and these Asians, during the 7th century and 7th century up to the 16th century and so forth. So, but the same thing too, man. That's our biggest downfall. Us letting foreigners into our space, and it brings us down every time.
Yeah.
So Kofi, can I ask a question real quick, just to stretch it just a second?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel about people that say that, well, Kofi, specifically speaking about Kemet, those foreigners was already there. They was there 20,000 years ago. So how could they be foreign if they already there?
They was there 20,000 years ago?
I'm just saying, like, in general.
Astronomical numbers again.
Yeah, that's crazy. I tell them they damn lie. They was there 20,000 years ago. Wow. Well, if you want to speak of it, far as the what you trying to speak from, as far as we say everybody is African, and you speaking it from a
no. Let me be specific. Let's like when you talking Kemet, you talking about Asiatics, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're talking Asiatics. So right. Let's say the Asiatics was already in the pocket. They saying they already in the pocket over there in the region a little bit, not all over. When I say Asiatics, I'm not trying to pluralize it to say like 100,000 people or 20,000 or 10,000. There's no actual number, but let's say about 100 of them. Let's say maybe 200 or 300 of them, somewhere in Tamari, off the east of the Nile, somewhere maybe 10 or 15 miles off the east of the Nile or close to the Nile. They over there. They've been there. Science says that, there was some Asiatic presence based on a haplogroup in the region over 20,000 years ago. Right? If they're there that long and wasn't nothing in the area, it was nomadic, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't a civilization or anything like that at any point of time. Then they're just saying that there's a presence there. So how do you feel about people saying that foreign people was already in the region and foreign people were a part of helping create whatever went on in Kemet in that early history, based on your knowledge?
Well, again, you said based on my knowledge, I'm unaware that those Asiatics been in that area 20,000 years ago. So I can't speak on that. That's something I would have to look into, but I don't think they've been there no damn 20,000 years ago.
Well, you got people who seem to think that, and then you have people who seem to think that like I don't want to get too much into that or anything like that, but I just want to kind of say, I just wanted to know how you feel about like foreign rule.
Oh, it's
Yeah, we'll talk about it on the after show or something like that, man.
Go ahead.
Yeah, do all that. But yeah, so I just read that one, and then the next is the white scholars as authorities. What you got on that, Sutek or Kofi? What's up?
I ain't got nothing on it until the next page, 180.
Okay.
Anybody
What
got
you-
anything?
I'll
what
read it. I mean,
What you just said, Satep?
Go ahead.
Say what?
No, I was asking Satep to repeat it. What did you just say, Satep?
I ain't say nothing.
No. I thought you had asked a question about something about authority or something.
No, I ain't said nothing.
Yeah, he was talking about
Okay.
the bottom is white scholars and as authorities. That's on
Yeah.
page 1.
That's what. Okay. Yeah. So yes, that has to be dealt with from a scholastic perspective, because we always assume that we don't have agency over our own stuff. Like, we immediately take the back seat when it comes to what we got going on. This is part of the problem right now. History,
You cutting in and out, Sean.
and then
Is he cutting in and out on y'all too?
story, you probably not. Yeah.
You cutting in and out, Sean.
Yeah, you ain't gonna hit me. I'm in this store.
Yeah,
What you had, Sutek?
Nah, I'm in this
Yeah.
store. You ain't.
all right. I just read the bottom of 79, then we can build on bit on what's name. We just kind of keep it flowing. White
Yeah.
scholars and as authorities, and as it has all this to do with migration, that answer almost everything. Much of history of Africa has been written by anthropologists. That's true. That have written it within a theoretical framework of their own ethnology. And historians and others have relied almost entirely on their classification of people. This usually came, excuse me, this usually claimed that the history of its science is made despite almost a pure guessing of characterizing its conclusion. Racism is so obvious in most of the anthropologists' findings that one may wonder how, if they hope to maintain the fiction of being scientific, it could escape their notice. It has been suggested that the bias does not, in fact, go unnoticed, but that there are certain unfavorable receptions by the white audience to which they address themselves, that what others outside of the world think is a matter of consequence. These labels do not supply the millions that support the African studies. The main thrust of their finding is to make African Caucasians from the beginning of its history and give them blacks not the subordinate role of no significant roles at all in history. And that's important too. Right there, further along we get in the chapter, you're gonna see what some of these so-called white scholars start to categorize them or from those Africans, and saying that the Africans could not build these structures. Africans could not create dam irrigations. Africans could not create ditches and etc. So they began to write themselves in it, or they give credit to someone, or they begin to give credit to someone else. So they always trying to classify because they think they are the superior one. So, and they always describe African culture or tradition as being primitive. It said, hence the great emphasis on one, the Caucasoids identifies that it is African tribe, and two, failing that the highly advanced all black situations where no such classifications could be made to allege Caucasians influence in one way or another. The record does not require debate. It meets the eye in most of the books by these Africanist experts. There should be no confusion over Negroid types and Caucasoid types, where these were such a widespread of mixing of races as was the case in Africa and elsewhere from early time. It has become even more ridiculous when it is established that certain Caucasians have Negroid features without benefiting of having a Negro blood, having any Negro blood. Conversely, many of the blacks having physical characteristics in which supposed to belong to Caucasians only. I'm gonna read a little bit further, then I'll stop.
Hold on, Kofi. Stop right there, because at the beginning he makes a valid point. This is what I was trying to say before I broke up when I was in the store. I knew y'all couldn't hear me, but this speaks about Europeans having agency over African history. This opens the door for people like people to take Africans out of Africa and insert whoever they want to insert. That's basically what he's saying overall with this particular conversation. Now, the problem with that is this: when we're studying the culture, because everybody has their eyes on this civilization, everybody in humanity has their eyes on this civilization. Hence, you get the scientific. You get the Egyptology, right? A scientific field created in order to study the Remech. Now, as far as the identity goes and how things come into play, this is a role. They're starting to give they're starting to how I want to say this, whitewash black history, right? Because earlier on, we know that them people came from the Sudanic area or the Sahara, around that particular place, and they go to Tamari, and then things began to prosper out of farming and out of irrigating and doing certain things in the area that allowed them to develop and prosper. Now, some people, not really some people have a problem with Africans speaking up for themselves and writing their own history. It has to be challenged if it's written by an African. But these Europeans can write about Africa, and it's easily accepted because we just can't believe it, or we think that it may be mislabeled and it becomes something else. So when Chancellor's writing these things, I'm getting everything that's going on right now, how people want to make arguments out of everything and infuse certain things on the culture, whether it goes from Northeast to South, Central, and West Africa. They do this with the continent and who we are. Even when they be like, well, we're West and Central Africans, correct. But we always have a lineage that will trace back to East all the way back to South in some areas based on the migrational patterns, which is what Chancellor starts this chapter with.
Right, because just basing off of me, and I'll just pass it. I have a high percentage of Nigeria and Ghana. So I did a DNA test. So that's how I know I've done a DNA test, and I've done other different things with my DNA test to get certain results and certain answers. And my people, my mother's people migrated from the East. Both of my parents was in the lineage was in the Bantu migration. So my father, on my father's side, his lineage goes always back to the East, even though his people been there for many, many, many years in West Africa. But their lineage, they migrated. They wasn't there in the beginning. They migrated into Nigeria. So they come from Kenya. So during the Bantu migration, they migrated from the East to the West. The same thing with my mother's side of my family. They come from Uganda. So they was also in that Bantu migration, and they come from so her lineage descends. They originally was in the east, and then they migrated into Ghana, and they've been in Ghana for many years. As well. I just touching on that since you mentioned them migrating from a certain place, and I can verify that myself that that my folks actually was in the east, and then they ended up in the west.
Yeah, man. So this chapter right here, I mean, not this chapter, but this segment right here is basically he laying out what academia, what Black history and white academia was going through during that time. So you see what our ancestors and our great scholars from that time period, from that great golden age, you see what they was up against. He telling you what they was fighting against. You know what I'm saying? And all that culminated into what you see today, the what is it? Hamitic hypothesis, where these Europeans is coming over and trying to make Black African civilizations and Black African groups of Caucasoid origin, because they didn't feel like that these savage primitive peoples can build such wonderful monuments, have such a beautiful culture. They had to be from somebody else. They couldn't have been of Negro origin. You know what I'm saying? So you see that in that Hamitic hypothesis, and it leads to what you see now over there in West Africa when you see these brothers and sisters talking about they Hebrew Israelites or they Jews, and they come from whites. They used to be white, and then they turn Black. Like they literally say that. You know what I'm saying? That culminates into what you see in 1994 in Rwanda, that genocide from the between the Hutus and the Tutsis. You know what I'm saying? So this is what academia was going through during that time. This is what African history was going through during that time. This is what our scholars of their age was fighting against. So, I'm gonna let you go ahead and read on a little bit more.
Oh, I'm done. I ain't got no more till we get to another page, so somebody else can jump in, T'Challa or Tech or Sean.
Where you stop at?
I stopped on page 180. I stopped in the middle of page 180.
All right, so I got something down towards the bottom leading into 181.
Hold on. I'm gonna read that. Let me start on that next paragraph.
That kind of goes into what you were saying, ain't it?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the next paragraph it says, in line with their presumption in taking over the continent and reordering its racial composition, the anthropologists and their historian followers have declared that true Negroes, Black Africans, are concentrated in West Africa only. So this is what they was going through during that time. They was pushing the blacks are only, true Negroes are only in West Africa. They ain't in East Africa. They was never in North Africa nor South Africa. West Africa only. So this is why you get, like in some of the elders, you might get pushback when you talk about West Africa. Now you understand the psychology. This is why, because that West Africa only mentality was forced on them by these European academic scholars, academic or scholarly racism. You know what I'm saying? So that's why you get the pushback in some of these elders of today when you speak about West Africa, because that West Africa only was pushed on them during that time period. All right, that's all I want to say. You can go ahead, Satip.
Yeah, that was good, man. I'm glad you brought that out. But, all right, I'm gonna go all the way down to the bottom, and all right. So it says, it's the very last line. The whites of South Africa are not waiting for the certain verdict of anthropologists and historians in their favor. They already claim to be the original inhabitants, saying, as Peter George Murdoch and his school proclaimed, that the Africans came into the land later, 1,000 years hence, and there will be no dearth of Caucasoid remains in Africa. Like that's when I read that, like I was like, for real? Like, are you serious? So this man trying to say that Europeans can have claim to Africa, and the blacks came in later.
They're slowly closing it in.
And that's why it's so important to me, man. When I keep saying, man, that we need to produce more authors to write, from our perspective, you know what I'm saying? Because this is, you got a lot of this, and this is why they create certain things. When you get to how many movies they put out about Egypt, and every movie that they put out about Egypt, every last one of them, except one old movie I seen, and I was a young boy when I seen that one with I can't think of the actor name. He's dead now. But majority of the movies come out are white people in the movie.
You talking about Charles Heston?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Other than that was when I was a little boy. I'm an old fella now. So all of these movies now are portrayed by white people. They are saying that these people was inhabited by white people, and these white people created these great edifices. You know what I'm saying? These white people, was the masters of astrology and astronomy, arithmetic, all these different types of things. That's why I say it's very important for us, and that's why I made the statement is, it's very important for us to read. It's very important for us to produce work. A lot of people say, what is the good in writing and producing publication? This is one of the damn reasons. So our kids won't be exposed to this misinformation, because again, it goes back to the psychology of things too. If you're being taught, if your kids are being taught that a group of people that does not look like them created and did all these great things for civilization, and you go back to their people and look at them, their people was primitive and they did nothing, it's gonna have an effect on them. They're gonna have a low self-esteem. And that's what the education system is doing anyway. It's having they're having a low self-esteem, and then it's triggering where I don't know, was that Sean or somebody made the statement about one's not listening to his own people, but listening to the other person, or listen to the other person that don't look like him. And that's what it is. That's why we always say, hey, I'm gonna take my car to the white man. Or I can say that and explain the same thing. Like I get at work. At work, I have people that that have to answer to me. So I can tell them a situation or something that can help them get their job done quicker. You know what I'm saying? Where they're working smarter and not harder. And then they won't listen to me, but the person that does not look like me can come around and say the same thing, word a little bit different. Their word is law, and then they follow them. So it's all like an psychological thing. So it's very important, man, for us to write and produce our own thing so we can tell our own story.
Copy. We also need folks in cinematography as well.
Mm-hmm.
We need folks producing movies. We need folks producing content on that level.
Yep.
That way we ain't got to worry about watching the Gods of Egypt. Although they did have the one brother playing Jehudi that just passed away. He played Black Panther. He was Jehudi in that Gods of Egypt movie, but yeah, Chad Boswick. But yeah, like we're the people that's creating content. So the brother that did Black Panther, he's actually a black guy. So we got some people out there, but we need to be producing it on a mass scale. That's why I wanted to work with Asari Kai with the comics and shit. I mean, stuff like that, because we need to be able to produce cinematography and comics and children's book, all that. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where we at though?
Sure, we on 181. Right, after that statement you made, you talked about George Peter Murdoch. We're going, I guess, talking a little bit more about George Peter Murdoch and in the discussion. You want to read that or?
Oh no, go ahead. I just wanted to highlight that part right there, man. I ain't got nothing after that to the next page.
Anybody else?
What's T'Challa do?
The bottom paragraph, it says the migrants were a new kind of missionaries. They carried whatever they could of their advanced civilization wherever they went, and they carried it far and wide. The backward groups that had been living away from the centers of progress were the beneficiaries. An economic revolution occurred in areas where the Nile migrants not only brought new grain crops, but also new implements and farming techniques. They also spread the gospel of the industrial production through the expansion of the crafts and their organizations into the guilds. The greatest of these was iron. For iron, all by itself, created the greatest industrial revolution in Africa and became at once both the catalyst and foundation of the new state formations and expansion of power. In like manner, basic African institutions, such as the traditional constitutional and social system, were reinforced in the migrations from the hinterland. And while many of these basic institutions were influenced and modified by Islam and Christian Europe, they all remain so unyielding at the core that they can be studied today almost as directly as they could have been 5,000 years ago. There's another fact in the connection that is pointed out often and never stressed. We generally speak glibly enough about this Asian and Western influence on Black Africa, but seldom about the influence of Africa on Asians and Western institutions. The process of Africanization began at once whenever and wherever the Blacks came into contact with foreign institutions. Both Islam and Christianity had to yield to Africanization. Even the autocratic sultans and the emirs, all powerful in Asia, clashed head on with the constitutional role of the council in Africa and had to yield. The religions that spread most rapidly and widely were those which were readily adaptable to African culture patterns. Islam and the Catholic Church led in this, and the culture pattern and the Catholic Church outdistanced every other Christian denomination in growth. Now, basically, what we're seeing here is the whitewashing. This is the smackdown. They had figured out a way to actually infiltrate Africa using some cultural practices from outside of Africa and bringing them in and trying to create the similarities. Hence, you have certain people claiming to be Israelites and say, well, they do circumcision too, or they do naming, some type of cultural similarity than other parts of Africa do. You know what I mean? They got this little list, and then they'll try to use the Bible to say, look, Ezekiel 10:10 or Malachi 1:11. I don't know. I'm just throwing out some stuff, but they usually use this stuff. But y'all know where I'm going, though. You feel me? Y'all know where I'm going. They usually got a Bible verse to say, see, they doing this right here. They naming Ezekiel or Malachi or some whoever. You know what I mean? And like that's the headache in all of this is that quit trying to compare African traditions and customs to that that is which foreign. We already know that Africans Africanized Christianity and Islam and made it fit into a paradigm in which they can continue to develop their own cultural identity themselves. That was the problem. That right there gave way to agency to Arabs and Europeans to come in and do this, right? Because we were a pagan people, because we wasn't writing all over the continent. Even though the Remich wrote, that wasn't considered writing at that time. They were still trying to figure that out. They didn't know what was going on with the Seshmetu Neter. They thought they would have a breakthrough and then they would have to revert back because scientifically they just couldn't figure out what was on these walls. When they thought they had something, it began to be something else. So they really didn't know if they had any type of agency or command of the language until an Arab said, hey, look, this is what's going on. And then that's when they began to figure out certain things. So when you have people in our own community saying that the cracker never cracked our code, they use the Arab to do it.
Now go ahead and read that next paragraph, Sean. You might as well go ahead and clean them scraps up too, because that critical.
Yeah,
next one is critical.
You're right, man. You're right.
Hey, you know what else though about that? The Africanization of these religions or these institutions, that made it easier for the African to accept So it's way easier for me to accept your foreign religion if I see some of my stuff in your stuff.
Right.
You know, so it made it a lot easier for them to accept because they weren't going too far away from their traditional religion, and they never left. To be honest,
and you see that today. You see that when you look in West Africa. We know when you look in West Africa, they still practice their indigenous traditions. You have some that may say that they are Muslims and they're you know they're practicing the faith of Muslims, but they're not particularly Sunnis or Shiites Muslims. You know what I'm saying? They incorporated what they call I think it's folk religion, what they categorize, the Europeans categorizing that as a synchronism of it, because when you look at certain things, and that's African traditions in general. Okay, if I'm practicing, let's just say I'm practicing Odinani. Odinani is the which I would call African spirituality, the African tradition of the Igbo people, right? So I'm practicing Odinani. So when these people come in, you know, and I may be acceptable, whatever the reason why I may be acceptable to it, I see okay, and let's just say in the Arabs, okay, I see animal sacrifice. Oh, I do that over here. I see I see polygamy, where a man can have more than one wife. Okay, we do that over here. So I see the similarity. I see the similarity in that. I see you revering someone called Prophet Prophet Muhammad. You know what I'm saying? Who y'all say existed at one period of time. So y'all is always revering these ancestors. We do ancestor veneration over here. We revere our ancestors. We revere our heroes. So I can relate to that. So you will see them begin to synchronize those different, you know, them different things gravitate toward to them, like he was saying. I'm down here. They Africanized began whenever blacks came in contact with foreign institutions. Both Islam and Christianity had to yield to Africanizations. And I'll stop there. But yeah, just you know, but there you see that, you know, I just gave some more examples. Sean gave some examples, and then just backing off of what Sutek was saying.
All right, so a large volume could be written on the African influence on both Asian and Western civilizations since the influence began in ancient times, was not limited to Caucasian or African continent, but was carried to other lands by migrating whites who themselves had been Africanized. African values did not die, even among the millions of slaves who were transplanted to distant lands. In the United States, where the system stamped out of every vestige of Black culture was most thoroughgoing and relentless, African traditions persisted and influenced not only the white slave-owning class, but the course of American civilization. The historical significance of the movement of people, no matter under what circumstance, can hardly be overemphasized. So basically, we're seeing this in our plight. We are descendants of the transcontinental kidnapping of our ancestors. And we brought with us things that we try to keep culturally intact. We didn't expect to inherit or to be Europeanized. We overtly became Europeanized based on the loss of language, the loss of identity, the loss of self-dignity, the loss of culture and traditional.
Wait, hold on before you walk too far down that road, because Pete, what he said though at the end, he said African traditions persisted and influenced not only white slave owning class, but the course of American civilization itself. So he's saying that, you know, the shit we brought over here with us, the little bit that we did bring, you know, that shit rubbed off on the white slave owners, and it, you know, made the course for history itself. Like, and that's what I'm saying. That shit is prevalent today because rap music is a perfect example of, you know, African traditions that we brought over here, you know, ciphers, building with each other, you know, because we do that over there too. They do it over there too. We brought that over here and we created it, and, you know, we Americanized it, and, you know, we made it into something of our own. You know what I'm saying? Now it's all around the globe. So it's like, you know, that little piece down there was powerful, man. That piece was powerful.
Yeah, I had that same thing underlined, man, up under here. That same little piece.
Yeah, that shit was powerful. I'm like, whoa, that set me back for a second. I'm like, I see that.
Mm-hmm.
But go ahead though, man.
Oh yeah, just briefly, but you're absolutely right. We had a hell of an influence. We had no choice, bro. We building the land. If we tilling we doing all the farming, we doing all the the pre-industrial work. You know what I'm saying? As far as the sharecropping and things of that nature, ideally we're going to start rubbing off on them. This is when you get certain people starting to take to us. You know what I mean? Outside the fact that in the South, it was a little bit more strategic in their methodology that they wanted us to remain dumb. But we had this gift of wanting to know more. So we don't know nothing about this new world. This is completely new to us. And while we're assimilating to the people around us, we're actually trying to learn more. People are trying to figure out how to get home. You know what I'm saying? People are trying to figure out how to do certain other things for survival. All of these played a role in what he actually saying toward the end, our influence. Because, you know, we didn't have no police or nothing like that where we were from. They formed these things to make sure that they held us in order and check and to keep us ignorant of who we are, where we come from, so they can continue to manipulate us. But through building, through farming and tilling the land, through song, dance, and our influences on their culture, they had no choice but to be Africanized, you know, in a sense too, because they knew what soothed them. It's kind of like, you know, when white people come to a black church in the South, the whole church, ain't no white people in the church, right? But then there's this little movement or whatever, and then you start to see 5 white people come to the church visiting this Sunday. Right? They might know the pastor. And I've seen this before. Full 5 white people sitting in the same pew next to each other. The choir gets to sing what the white people do.
Shoot, they get up. They get up.
Come on, man. What they getting up, they hallelujah, hooping and hollering, shoo-shooing and all that.
Yeah.
They assimilate quickly. Based on they little, you know, like, woo, something touched my spirit, my soul.
Look who in and riding.
There you go. Hit him with the hot boy. yeah. But that's how it go down, man. I think that, like you said, man, that was powerful. But everybody took a swing at us. You know what I mean? The Arab took a swing at us. The Europeans took a swing at us. You know, they kept taking swings at us until they found out how they can play on the superficial beliefs of the African mind, which would then play a role in them circling back and dominating us in a different way, mentally or psychologically. But go ahead, Coach.
I'll just gonna ask a question. So, okay, why do people then feel like that? We always talk about us being encountered by these foreigners, these Asians, these Arabs, these Europeans, and you know how they influence us, and you know we begin to look through their eyes with their perspective because they influenced us. Why we never look at we look at it the same way with them? They came and encountered us, or we and through them coming, do whatever, you know, invasions of, you know, invading or migrating or bumping into us or however it may be and living amongst us. Y'all, why nobody else say that we influence them? You know, I never hear that Africans influence, you know, well, I hear it, but I very seldom hear it. We always talking about what ain't right because we was influenced by the Europeans, like we don't influence the Europeans to do certain things. And even just going back to, you know, like I tell people, we always try to be like, you know, we try to be everything but African. But everybody is trying to be African. You know what I'm saying? Just going back to you know, you're talking about music. You know what I'm saying? you know, in music, sports, or whatever. People are trying to be like us. We are the biggest influencers, you know what I'm saying, on the planet, but people fail to realize that. So we running away from who we truly are, but the people that you know that don't look like us, they running toward and trying to be, you know, everything that the African is, everything that we are. So why is it that, you know, we don't never talk about that, man? You know, we always talk about them and we, you know, the influence they did, but we don't. But Africans can't have no influence on nobody else. But we see it. We can see this in real daytime now, but nobody speak on it.
Hey, Kofi,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to add to that point that let's just put it in perspective, right? In whatever city you live in right now, you got multiple demographics across multiple ethnicities and across multiple nationalities, depending on where those people are from. So on your block, you might have 3 people that's from Tennessee. You might have 4 people that's from, I don't know, somewhere out west. You might have a few people from Canada, because that's the way America is. So let's just put it back in those times, and you're talking about Asiatics, quote unquote, being down in some place, or any foreigners being down in whatever place so deep in Africa, influencing African culture to the point where they're trying to say that the African culture that you see when you go back and find it is really some Asiatics coming in and giving them that, right? Is it logical to say that a small population of people is going to influence an entire continent of these cross-cultural references from the leopard skin in West Africa all the way back over to Kemet, all the way back down to the Deep South? That doesn't make sense to me. That's not what anthropology tells us when we study anthropology and study the cultures of different people. That's not what the archaeology tells us when we find the artifacts to verify what these people's culture is. That's not how that works in those. Or am I lying? Somebody tell me if I'm not making sense. That's like saying that a small group of people is gonna move to Japan and influence all the islands of Japan. No, you're not. One tree is never more important than all of the rest of them.
Right.
That's it.
Hey, T'Challa.
What's up?
That was a good point, man. That's a good point. But what we got? What's next?
We at the bottom of page 182.
Yeah. He basically goes and at the bottom he says we have seen how why the flight of blacks from the Sudan increased as the Arab hordes continued to sweep in during the 13th century, and Islamization was more aggressively pushed. To many blacks, leaving the homeland, what was happening was far worse than the sight of the cities, towns, and villages going up in flames. So now they saw their very own leaders, kings, and notables divesting themselves of a tradition of a civilization that went back beyond history and into Paleolithic times, and for expenditure of self-interest, were humbly grasping at the robes of the Arabs, their language and their religion. Their leaders on the throne were no longer Africans or Ethiopians. They were now still another race. They were Black Arabs. I'll let you go first, Tick.
You go ahead.
All right, so basically in the paragraph we're talking about the plight of Africans and their abandoning their own traditions and cultures to accept an Arabs. And what has taken place is that you have a time where Arabs are punking us using technology and other things, trade to control the minds and the rulership of the chiefs and the kings in the area. And let's keep it real. They took a lot of people, castrated them. They enslaved a lot of people, raped the women, stopped you from reproducing, stopped you from loving your deities and your culture. Made you hide your own identity when they are around, and made it okay to actually force you to enslave your neighbors in order to consider yourself to be serving Allah as a convert. They basically converted you and then said, well, you ain't got to get rid of all your Africanness. You can keep some of your Africanness. However, we're going to take the certain things that you do away from you, and then we're going to allow you to govern accordingly to our law, Sharia. And when Sharia takes place, and if you're not obeying the law of Allah, then the merciful, then we're going to wreak havoc on you through jihad, and we're going to make examples out of you and your rulership. So this is why they would burn up the towns. The homes in the village. So when they came in, they had to destroy everything because they didn't want you to have a memory of who you were. It had to be taken away from you by force, not choice. So the force that was used allowed the Arabs to actually dominate the times. And by allowing them to dominate the times, they just controlled the message from that point on, because people feared having to lose everything that they worked so hard to gain at that point. So if you're a weaker person and or you're a weaker people, and they kind of prey on you, and they did that. They used Islam to prey on the weak, and they did what they had to do in the name of Allah, the merciful. You couldn't trade or do business unless you knew Arab merchants. Those Arab merchants that you knew, you had to have some type of relationship with them, or you had to be a convert, and that's how things got down. So this was make the missionary that was talked about earlier so important, because we don't never talk about the Arab missionaries, even though they didn't come how the Portuguese came with the missionaries. They came a different way. You know what I'm saying? That's why we assimilated to Islam and wanting to be a Muslim so bad, because of what Sutik said initially. They showed us things in their culture that was similar to what we already had going on, and it made it easy to assimilate. But when they know we went to the bush, that was forbidden, and that had to get dealt with.
Mm-hmm. Shoot, I'll start with the Sahara tragedy. I'm at the bottom of page 183 for people that still got their books and following along in the book. Page 183. I'm at the bottom. Yeah, the Sahara tragedy. Sahara tragedy. So we return to the Sahara again, for here where the first Black migration begins before written history. Sahara, a wasteland, indicated what it became, not what it was. It was the largest known region of Badal al-Sudan, the land of the Blacks, viewed this area for at least 5,000 years. It is difficulty to believe that it was not forever thus. But the Sahara, far bigger than the United States, was once a land of lakes, rivers, forests, green fields, farms, villages, towns, cities. Wildlife was abundant. Cattle grazes the meadows, and horse-drawn chariots sped over the highway. It was a great land, yet only a part of the ever great Black world. We have already noted that the Blacks, Africans world had been under relentless pressure from seacoast of invading whites from the earliest times as Hebrew, Phoenicians, Mongols, Arabs, Berbers, Greeks, Romans, etc. It was also a point at that it was now without significance that even today most of the invaders occupied the same areas were there first in the sea coast. And I'll stop and I'll read a little bit further, but he's just talking about the Sahara. A lot of people know that we know that the Sahara is a desert. We know that that was a trade route for the Arabs, where they traded certain things. That route was for trade. You had the Mediterranean Sea up top. You had the Atlantic Ocean at the bottom. Just according to how you looked at the continent, because the Africans looked at it differently. But anyway, the Sahara was a place, it was a habitable place, what he's getting down, where he's talking about. It had lakes, rivers, cities, fields at one particular time. And then we talked about Mother Nature a while ago, right? We was talking about migrations. So, Mother Nature causes these people in the Sahara to migrate east, west, and south. So Mother Nature was a reason for these people migrating to another place, and we'll talk about what Mother Nature actually did the farther we get along in the thing. But also, he talks about in here too, just the different invasions of these different people also pushed us out into pushed us out of these areas into other places for our safeties, or certain things that these groups of people came in and began to set up certain things and certain policies. Sean or Sutek, correct me if I'm wrong. Even when the Arabs came in at one point in time, and we cohabitated with them in a particular area, then they set up some types of tax things. So a lot of people started converting for tax reasons, or they was pushed off because they wasn't able to pay those taxes. So they converted to be a Muslim in order to keep the land or stay in that particular region.
Yeah, it was about trade. So if you want to be a part of the trade that was going on at the time, and you wanted them goods coming from North Africa, then you got to get down with Islam. This our trust system that we got. This was their mentality. This our trust system that we got. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can trust you to be able to do good business because you a brother Muslim. You know what I'm saying? So that's how they looked at it. So to be a part of the trade and to get that trade line coming from North Africa, with all those goods coming from North Africa, which, those goods come from North Africa were coming from above the Mediterranean and from the east of the Mediterranean as well. So you got a lot of stuff coming from that North African region. So you definitely want to have that plug. So to have that plug, you got to get down with Islam. You know what I'm saying? So they would convert. First, they would convert the ruler. They would first off, the traders. You got to be Muslim. Then, you know what I'm saying, if they settle in a particular or near a particular kingdom or whatever, the king has to be Muslim as well, and his royal court. And they looked at it as, and he gonna get into it. They looked at it as like, if you Muslim and you over all your subjects, you gonna keep them in line with the rule of Islam over the rule of your indigenous system, your indigenous traditional ways. So you know what I'm saying? They infiltrated in many ways, bro. But yeah, that was their thing. Trade. If you wanted to get down with this trade system, you wanted the trade line, you got to be down with Islam.
Yeah, and I was wanting to say too, like, you find that now with the United Nations. Like, if you want to do international trade, import, export, you got to be down with the United Nations. You got to be a part of them accords and a part of them agreements. It's gonna be all bad for you. And I give you an example. You got North Korea. They're a dictatorship and they isolated. You know what I'm saying, from civilization. So yeah, I mean, you find it. But I want to slide down to let's see. I'm at 184. Did you read that check, Kobe?
Nah, I ain't read it. I already know where you finna go with it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so at the top it says, for centuries these whites must have been received with the traditional African hospitality. Y'all know we got good hospitality. Y'all know we got good hospitality. They were migrants, settlers, and traders. Many like early blacks themselves were seafaring men. That the blacks were once among the most adventurous of peoples is evidenced not only by the presence of their descendants in many lands and numerous far-flung lands, but also by archaeological remains found in various parts of Europe. Now, based off what we was talking about earlier, what do y'all think about that statement right there? This is a discussion paragraph right here.
I'm gonna go back and read it.
I figured Shauna has something to say first.
No, I was trying to do something, but as far as you're on 184, ain't you?
Yeah,
very top. He's saying like the blacks are seafaring people, and we've been all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And finding archaeological evidence for it, and some found in various parts of Europe.
Yeah, so to deal with that, this is where Blackology comes in. Comes into play because we don't have evidence. What we have evidence of is canoes, right? We were craftsmen as far as local sea travel. We didn't have ships in the Mediterranean taking. We wasn't involved in any Mediterranean wars. We wasn't involved in the Christian and Islamic war that was fought in the Mediterranean. We wasn't a part of any other Mediterranean beefs that actually took place because we didn't have an interest in things outside of the continent. So this notion that we would be in other places would only be if we were enslaved, captured, and sold to go in those particular places. And even when we migrated into certain areas, whether it be for like some type of beef around the Mediterranean and or through the Levant area up into the land of Canaan and so on and so forth, it was to handle our business so that we can get back what we had rightfully in those areas, or if there was just some type of conflict of interest, we had to settle our differences. But dealing with that first paragraph, this goes to show that our ancestor at the time didn't have access to information that we had access to. And this would be a appeal to authority in the sense of relying on a non-credible source, referring to sea travel for Africans along that time that did not exist. And we just have to be honest with that. You know, when dealing with that, because it goes further, and he's about to go further in the second paragraph, which would be, I think, something I thought Sutek would get on 184.
Hey, go ahead, go into it, because you know, he getting ready to talk about, you know, how the Moors, who the Moors are. So
right.
Let's deal with this second paragraph right here.
Hey y'all, and just put the disclaimer out there, like we always been doing for this when we've been reading these chapters. Some of the chapters with things that we don't disagree. We got to put it. We're not disrespecting the ancestors, and this is a great publication. But again, like Sean said, I mean, you know, the resources. Our ancestors didn't have certain resources, and my book was at certain different dates when these books were copyrighted. My copyright is 1986, so you know. There was less resources for our ancestors than what we have. So what we doing is updating the scholarship. So it's no attack on them. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, man. And Chancellor Williams wouldn't want us appealing to his authority anyway. He would want us standing on his shoulders instead of leaning on his information. You know what I'm saying? So it's what we're doing.
And all respect on us challenging it as well.
That's right.
As young scholars.
Right. So I just want to throw that out there because you know how people are flipping and say this what's wrong with the youth, that they go trying to attack their ancestors and attack the elders. They so disrespectful blase, this and that. So, and I know we done said this like the third or fourth time that we done had to break something down while we disagree on a certain piece or in the text.
All right, so now hold on one quick, because we got some chatty patties. We got some chatty patties fighting. All right, so it seems clear, therefore, that
I said we're gonna deal with this paragraph or what?
Yeah. It's clear, therefore, that the whites were not regarded as invaders with ulterior motives, but as co-partners in the further development of world trade. There was no obvious reason to think otherwise. No particular significance was seen in the fact that the whites always massed along the sea coast and built their own towns and trading post strongholds there. The blacks were also in these same coastal areas. There was a general mixing of amalgamation of the races. Also, from earliest times in this area, the offsprings of blacks and white Berbers and Arabs became known as Moors, Tuaregs, Tipu, and Fulani. Like Afro-Americans, they were of every conceivable complexion. Some of the whitest have Negro blood. The scientists of Africa, however, classify even the darker skin in these groups as Caucasoid. It does not appear that any black prophets came forth to warn the trusting African people that over 3 million square miles of their fertile land would be made a vast wasteland.
Hold on. You blaze through that, man.
You can't glaze.
Well, I was gonna go back and deal with
Hold on. Because I want Sutek to address some shit. Hold on,
man.
now.
So
I need you to go back where it says
there was I'm about to get to it. It says right here in the middle of that paragraph, there was a general mixing or amalgamation, basically the same thing, mixing and amalgamation of races. Also, from the earliest times, in this area, the offspring of blacks and white Berbers. So they saying white Berbers, blacks and white Berbers and Arabs became known as Moors. So Moors, this is telling you exactly where Moors are. You know what I'm saying? A mixing or amalgamation of blacks, white Berbers, and Arabs. You know what I'm saying? The same thing for the Tuaregs, the Tipu, and the Fulani. But this is telling you exactly who Moors are.
Now keep going, Sutek, because I want to ask you a question now.
Like Afro-Americans, they were they were of every conceivable complexion. Some of the whitest having Negro blood. The scientists on Africa, however, classify. All right.
How you feel about that?
What's in it?
Where he
like that?
He basically saying it's white Moors.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. I didn't know you could be white and be a Moor.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, before they were black.
Because I just said because you know they was just live over there on the joint over there and had one on there. I'm shocked by it, but I didn't know that could be. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, they called themselves Al-Bidani. That means the whites. So they made a clear distinction from the black Moors. So it was white Moors. They didn't call themselves the Moors. First of all, didn't call themselves Moors. They didn't even know they was Moors until they got over there in Spain and started getting around these Europeans, because that's a European term. You know what I'm saying? They was calling themselves Al-Bidani. That's the whites. And for the blacks, they was call them either Sudan or Sudani, or they would be the Haratine in North Africa and Morocco, or they would be the Equine in the Sahara with the Tuareg. You know what I'm saying? So it's a clear distinction. It's white Moors and black Moors.
Hey, go into the Berber for me, because I'm asking because I'm confused when it comes to the term of Berber and how it's used.
Reggie did a good job explaining that in this debate. However, it's just, Berbers aren't really sub-Saharan African. They are Berbers are what most Tuareg most Tuareg are, and even some of those Moors that they're looking at, like they look dusty, like they're mixed up, like European and Arab mix. You know, you get that amalgamation of a Berber, and you know they cling to mountains and areas and parts of North Africa, closer to the Mediterranean. Yeah, they look dusty.
So the Berber, and yeah, because I was kind of confused with that, and even with the word Berber, ain't it's like a derogatory term? By them, describing
that's another Berber. That's another outside term.
Right, because it means barbarian or something. I can't remember. I remember a while back here, me doing some stuff on it, but I wasn't clear at specifically what a Berber was. And then I know it seemed from what I was reading, it seems like it was a derogatory term, someone else describing another group of people.
Yeah. You right, Kofi. You own the because like it was somebody else.
Go ahead, Sater. My bad.
They called them Berbers. Y'all hear me?
Yeah, you good.
Okay, yeah. It was somebody else who called them Berber language, and it was because they was barbaric, I believe.
Right, and I remember that it's been a while back here, and I know Sean and what's name be talking about the Berbers, but I just never got a chance. I ain't never went back and did some intense research in it, just me passing the word Berber and some stuff that I was reading in the past, and then I was like, this is a derogatory term. And then I remember, and I guess they were describing these people as being barbarians or barbaric or something like that. But I could be wrong. Like I said, that's why I'm asking the question, just to clarify what is a Berber and was it a derogatory term by someone describing another group of people,
Yeah, it was. It was a European term. That's a European term as well. Mm-hmm. Like Arabs wasn't really calling Berbers. They were calling them by their tribal names. You know what I'm saying? Like they would call us, for the most part, a lot of times they were familiar with us and our tribal names. They would call us by our tribal names. But it was a term given to them by outsiders, Europeans, barbar. It meant barbarian.
Right.
And at first talking about people from a specific area, and then it kind of blossomed into talking about all North Africans of that mixed stock. You know what I'm saying?
So they was calling Hannibal a Berber, wasn't they?
Yeah, he is a Berber.
Mm-hmm. He ain't African. He ain't sub-Saharan African, I should say. Like people may try to make him out to be.
Ooh, you finna get some stuff started with that.
Right. Let's move on.
Free smoke.
All right, I'm slide on over to 185. We're gonna talk about the aggressive whites. It says the whites were aggressive, always relentless, pushing for the command position in every situation. No matter how small their numbers or how significant their project, the blacks, by contrast, were not so aggressive, tending towards the brotherhood approach and generally striking only in relation for prior wrongdoings. This overall humane and essential religious attitude of the blacks led Harold Toynbee to say that mankind may have to emulate them if civilization is to be saved. So right there, he basically saying like Europeans, whites, they always aggressive. They're always aggressive. Us being black people, we take the brotherhood approach. So what I got out of that is, when you working with Europeans and you working with black people in the work environment, when I'm working with a European, I know how they are. I know their tactics. So I'm not gonna be in brotherhood mode with them. I'm gonna be, straight regular because I know how they are. But if I'm working with somebody that look like me and I can talk to them and identify, I come at them with the brotherhood approach, and it always works. You know what I'm saying? You build a relationship that way. So right here, like I just took it as like the white, they always aggressive. Like and they always pushing for command and possession in every situation.
That's a
Versus building. You know, it's always me versus you. Now, if I'm working over here with my brother, it's all right, bro, let's get this done so we go kick it. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know, man. That little piece inside this paragraph, I like that part right there.
Yeah, you know, the brotherhood approach, hell, it was the downfall of Kemet.
Right.
The brotherhood approach, man. Yeah, but you're gonna go down further because I want to jump back to 84 if you done. If not, you go ahead and I'll just wait my turn and go back because well, yeah, just go ahead.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, well, I'm gonna jump back to, we can jump back to 85, but I jumped back to 84 because I want to talk to the people. But we still talking about migrations too. We're talking about why they migrated. So we talked about earlier, we talked about the Sahara and we talked about Mother Nature. And earlier, me and Sean, we was talking about, you know, the different reasons of migrations and what they did when they migrated, and the different developments of their customs and traditions due to the geographical location. And like I said, some of migrations was through force, which we know through the Atlantic slave trade. Some of them was due to Asian hoarding. You know what I'm saying? Different invasions where people left, and then certain things happened for doing the things that they experienced with Mother Nature that forced them to migrate. So going back down here, and we're talking about the Sahara now. It says the sandstorms at first began their long and relentless rampage over hundreds of miles, but only the previous deforesting and the disappearance of the grasslands made it easy. The disseminations began far back in time, probably during the period of the Quaternarian time begins. No one knows how long the awful process of drying up the lakes and the rivers lasted. What is crystal clear is that during the ensuing migration, the blacks made their greatest and most tragical error. It was an error to be fraught with the direct historical consequence for the whole black race. Instead of moving in masses to the seacoast and maintain the dominant position there, which they could have done easily, they moved in mass toward interiors, first to remain the remaining oasis in the desert, and then into the north and south, Ethiopia, Egypt, and the Sudan, and to the south, central and western region. And I'll stop right there, and I'll start back over here. But going back up, I just wanted to talk about why, and this is what led them to the migrations in the Sahara was Mother Nature. You know, further along, I think it talks about it here, but if you study what happened to the Sahara, those massive, those strong winds, those strong gusts of winds, and those sea storms that was coming in from the north, you know what I'm saying? Those winds was pushing in that sand into Africa, and not only pushing that sand into Africa, it was pushing sand and stones in Africa. So they had to migrate out of those areas. It was said that some people stayed there and died during those windstorms that came in that pushed rocks and gravel into the Sahara. But that's how the Sahara begins to become a desert wasteland, is due through Mother Nature. The events that happen through Mother Nature push these people from out of the Sahara into west, south, and north. And even just talk about them going into north. Are some of those people, and I'm just asking a question, and I mean anybody on the panel or anybody in the thing, those people that migrated out of the migrated out of the Sahara, when some of those people that went into, and I'm just asking, that went into the north, or some of those people that migrated out of the Sahara, did they become a part of the Kemetu or the Remit society? Because we know that a lot of the ethnic groups in Kemet, it's not one particular ethnic group. There was multiple different ethnic groups. It wasn't one particular tribe that occupied that landmass called Kemet, or had a great deal to do with Kemet being the hub of knowledge and information.
What time period are you referring to?
Well,
that makes a hell of a difference.
Well, yeah, you're right. And well, damn. That killed my question, because I don't have a specific time period. Because I don't forgot the time period of, because this happened throughout overtime before the desert. Before the Sahara dried up. So I don't have a specific time period of when. So just disregard that question, because you're right. I will have to have a time period of when a group of people migrated out, and I know they migrated out in small masses. Everybody didn't migrate out of the Sahara all at one time. Like we got a red alert. Everybody's going toward the exit. Everybody did not migrate, so they migrated out at different periods of different points of time. So yeah, disregard that question.
Okay, all right. So we got about 10 more minutes left. We're gonna go ahead and end the show, and y'all want to do after show, whatever. Cause
yeah, real quick, it was a process though. So yeah, you're right.
What we got? What we got up next?
Hold on. I was just saying it's a process though. It was a process, but it was always we were always in the Sahara with those Berber types as well, until during that whole desertification process, until we got pushed out later on. You know what I'm saying? The Berbers got together and pushed us out later on. We a lot of those spots in the oasis that you see during that desertification process, that was us, and we eventually got pushed out by those Berbers. Yeah, what's next?
We can go to where y'all at 187.
No, it was on what we went from 84 to 85 back to 84. So wherever you want to start there, you want to start on page 87. You can start on page 87.
Hold on, I got something on 86, then I'm done after that.
Let's say that. Go ahead.
All right, I'm gonna start this first paragraph.
Okay.
Social and economic mobility came from the circumstance that the blacks made up the strong contingents of the Berber and Arab armies. Some became commanders, others became chief counselors to sultans. Most males were castrated, however, or removed from the possible contact with all females. All equally significant group was the labor force of the enslaved blacks. These were highly important because reveal the white Asians from all labor. The blacks, who were skilled craftsmen in various fields, fared better since they were generally spared from the whip. So, like, this paragraph right here just speaks to the Arab enslavement right here, because we know a lot of the brothers they castrated, and but the one thing about the Arab slave trade, like, you could become somebody of nobility within their system. And reason why I know that is because in volume 2, I wrote a chapter. My chapter was about Malik Umbar, and he was a victim of the Arab slave trade. And they note in there that a lot of the people that they kidnapped or was victims of the slave trade got castrated, but Malik Umbar, they did not castrate him. His masters was good to him. So yeah, when he traveled from, he was in Baghdad, then they went down to India. He became somebody of nobility when he got there. Y'all can check that out. But yeah, that's it for 86. If you want to go to 87, Sean.
Yeah, I'm gonna knock it out real quick. Just go down to the second paragraph with the ethnology and the migrations. He says, The great story of the Sahara is yet to be told. I'm going to repeat that again. It says, the great story of the Sahara is yet to be told. Archaeology has hardly scratched the surface beneath which a lost civilization lies buried under several thousand feet of sand and rocks. How far westward did the effective rule of the ancient empire extend? How many kingdoms were there, and by what African names were they known? Were the fringe states, such as ancient Ghana, that were found fighting for survival on the edges of the desert once a part of the vast imperial system? There is some evidence that this may have been the case, but the actual fact remains unknown and speculation becomes an idle pastime. I'm going to continue on. It says, what is known is that the migrations from the Sahara, while heavily concentrated in Upper Egypt and the Eastern Sudan, also spread out over Africa in and through the Western Sudan. Now, basically what he's saying is still true to this day. Why? Because archaeologists, paleontologists, and every other field of scientific field of study, all under the banner of what we call Egyptology, is still hunting and digging up things and, you know, recovering bodies and recovering history and recovering specific locations and, you know, running their tests and trying to understand who these people were in this particular area. And this has a big question mark on it because not a lot of some African presences in the area, but the field of Egyptology is heavily dominated by Arab and European people in the area looking to point at different parts of history and identity. And this is what makes the agency so important. Even though the Rimage left writings behind, even though we continue to find stelae and papyrus and things of that nature, even though we know they're using a new science called DNA or dealing with genetics that's helping uncover some of these things, the oldest genetic evidence that we have when we're talking about Kemet relies on a particular area, which we can get into later. But the whole in this, the whole of this story is this. Are we going to continue to, like you said at the beginning of the onset of the chapter, allow other people to have agency on Africa, or is Africa going to reclaim itself and write its own story? So I think that, you know, by not being involved and engaged in the particular field, certain scientific fields of study, we're in hindrance to ourselves, and we can't combat the misinformation wholeheartedly until we're able to honestly come together and do what we need to do to tell our own story or continue to tell our own story. I'm gonna get the rest of this, y'all.
Shoot, I ain't have nothing else. What you had and what Satep had, that was all I had. I didn't have nothing else up past 85 and past 86.
Yeah, me either, man. What you had, Suteg?
Yeah, that was it for me.
All right, well, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this series up, y'all. We did go a little long today.
This was a good chapter.
Yeah, we glad y'all stuck around with us because this was a good chapter. And yeah, so next week we'll be talking about the resurrection and the life case studies by states. Kofi, you got any final words?
Nah, man. That's the usual spiel, man. Shoot. Go to Kofi www.kofipice.tv and get the new latest publications, Spiritual Combat, a Historical Survey of the Minds of African Warrior Scholars, Volume 1. Or if you don't have any of the works, go get all the publications. We have 7 publications. Just go to the Learning Market, click the Learning Market and scroll down. If it's a book that you may be interested in that was published by us, click the link and purchase the book. Also, if you, you know, the holidays is, you know, coming up, Christmas, Kwanzaa, coming up, New Year's, you know, so go to Google. You can just type MBOKA Family Connected Apparel, or just go to www.familyconnectapparel.com and go to our online store and purchase you some Mboka brand clothing, some Kofi Price, our research team brand clothing if you support the team. Go cop some Mossy Warrior Clan brand clothing if you support the team and what we do for the Mossy. Niger Valley brand clothing if you support that brand and what our brothers is doing over there. Go support all those brands or brands that represents you. You know what I'm saying? So, and it has a powerful meaning, powerful statement behind it. Some passionate brothers that's behind the brand. So just go cop some. And also I threw up if you missed the presentation I did on Thomas Sakara, there's a new shirt, Thomas Sakara shirt that's available now on there, man. So go on there, man, and check out something and get something for yourself. Yeah. Appreciate that, Sister Lakeisha. Sister Lakeisha already popped it up on there. So that's the link. Go in there, man, and see what you got. Get your hat, get your shirt, get your hoodie, get you a long sleeve, get you some, pants, get you a bucket cap, get you a skull, get you a t-shirt, get you something off of them, man. There's something on for everybody, man. But that's all I have, man. Just go support.
What's up, Sute? You got some final words for the peeps?
Yeah, man. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Make sure y'all come through next week. We're gonna be dealing with Mali, Ghana, Song High. You know what I mean? I'm excited. We're gonna be dealing with Mossy. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'm definitely amped up for this next week, man. Make sure y'all tune in. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Like my brother said, man, get the merch, get you some books. We got a little bit of something for everybody, man. Appreciate y'all, man.
All right, y'all.
What we doing? We doing the after show? What we doing?
Yeah, we're gonna do an after show. So y'all, if y'all want to catch us on the after show, we're gonna do the after show. So we'll see y'all. I'm gonna set the link up for the after show.
Yeah.